Welcome back, Husker fans, to another episode of Generation Red, the kettle corn of Husker fan podcast, where we are chronicling Nebraska's inevitable return to college football greatness, one podcast at a time. I am one of your hosts, Ken.
I am one of your hosts, Coach BA.
And I am Justin Adams here on the end, bringing you, we got a little Coach BA sandwich going on here. So,
Coach BA.
I'll bring you that hard-hitting analysis of Kansas City dropping the ball last night.
Kansas City, yeah, that was hard hitting. All right, they got hit hard and they never really recovered. I mean, that offensive line was getting it was like they were playing bumper cars. I mean, really, that's what I was like. It was like the defensive ends would come at the tackles and they would just kind of do this. Yeah. They get shoved back 2.5 yards and then they'd put their arms out and it'd be too late. I don't know if that's a technique that they're teaching there, but apparently
shouldn't be.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly.
Can I tell you the one thing that made me happy? I mean, obviously, other than Kansas City losing as a non-Kansas City fan, I will say the one thing that I like as a coach is it showed that even in today's game, winning in the trenches still matters. You can look at all the other you still got to win in the trenches. That's the one thing that we could still be able to point to these kids and say, hey, you still got to win up front. And because Philadelphia brought it up front, no doubt.
Yeah, the Kansas City picked the worst time for their offensive line. I mean, their offensive line has kind of had issues here and there this season, but they picked literally the worst time to have their worst performance I've seen in years.
Right.
It was unbelievable how bad they played. And it's just like, a 0% blitz percentage, 4-man rushes are just beating you every single time. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
You know what was beautiful about it, though, too, even though I am kind of a pseudo Kansas City fan, I wasn't really emotionally attached to the game. I just kind of had the rooting interest of close proximity to here. What was beautiful to watch was exactly that. No blitz, just 4 dudes absolutely caving the pocket in on Mahomes, and he had nowhere to go once it got there. Whereas if they dared to cave the pocket in a little bit on Jalen Hurts, it seemed like the middle was always wide open. So it was reminiscent kind of some of those mid-90s lines at Nebraska where you only had to bring 4 dudes. Everybody could drop and either run man-to-man or whatever, and the linebackers just run around and make running backs' lives miserable. It was really fun to watch. Defense, it was really good. And I was surprised Kansas City held up as well as they did on defense after even Chris Jones got hurt. So, I mean, I know they probably shut it down a little bit, but still.
Yeah, the Eagles, like O-line, it just seemed like every time they at least had good contain. And, there was always an avenue for Jalen Hurts to kind of sneak up that middle too, because they had those good contains on. They made sure that they got those guys to the outside of the pocket, and that always left a little lane for him to kind of sneak through. But with Mahomes, it was just like they collapsed around him, and he really didn't have really good pocket awareness in that game. Even when it was
his footwork was terrible too.
It was bad.
And obviously I will not he's one of the greatest players, but I'm just saying he is. When I was watching that all 22 this morning, I was like, dude, his footwork was bad. And it's probably from, not trusting that O-line probably had a big part of it, getting hit so much. But, man, he was very – like you said, that pocket presence was not there whatsoever, man.
No, just and you saw it in a couple of his throws too, where he was just kind of short arming it too. And that's just all in his base. He's using his arm more so than kind of setting his feet and using that full – body that can link the kinetic chain to really fire that ball on target. And so, I think he just got rattled pretty early on by that pressure, which is, I mean, if you have an all-time great quarterback, I'm just saying your offensive line doesn't give you the best protection in the world. And all of a sudden you turn into, Jameis Winston back in when he first got drafted.
Yeah, absolutely. It was ugly from the get-go on the Kansas City sideline for sure. It was frustrating to watch him not figure out how to adjust to it, how to figure out how to stop. And Kelsey being more worried about his GQ haircut than he was a pair of hands that actually are supposed to catch a football was a little disheartening too. It's kind of like, Taylor has ruined your football, son. You need to let her go or retire and let somebody who actually wants to catch a football when it matters get in there and do the job. So
Even that D-Hop drop surprised me. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Hopkins is not the guy you would expect because Patrick Mahomes finally kind of rolled out of the pocket, was able to make a little throw on the run. He threw it short, but D-Hop should have made that play. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that was when,
Well, then it
it's like nothing is going right for that
Right.
ball.
and it looked like finally there's a play to be had. He could turn up field a little bit, get some yards, but he trips over his own dang feet too
Yep.
on his way to go to the ball.
Yeah.
I don't know
And-
if he drops it if he doesn't trip over his feet, but it's like,
Yep.
yeah, that's the kind of day this is. Not even the turf monster; it was just his own feet.
And
It
AJ
was
Brown
so
is a
weird.
nightmare.
AJ Brown
is
was
a
insane.
nightmare. One-on-ones with AJ Brown has to be like hell. I literally can't imagine having to deal with him.
Hey, but to kind of tie this into Nebraska, kind of before we kind of start going into that Nebraska news, but like, I don't know about you guys. I enjoy Cooper DeJean so much more now that he's not wearing a uniform.
Me too.
Now that he's not wearing those ugly colors, I actually really enjoy watching him play.
I'm all supportive of the white defensive back. The one sole defensive back. Notice I said back and not backs.
Yes.
Right.
Got to root for at least one of them to be successful.
There's got to be one. Darn it.
Yeah, we got to want it on his birthday.
He was really, and yeah, he's way less annoying to root for now that he's not wearing Iowa colors.
Yeah,
and that was a great interception. That was a great run back. I mean, that little stutter step he did 15 yards from the end zone was beautiful.
Yeah, my buddy's
stopped for a second, cut over. There he goes. And it was nobody wanted to tackle him. It looked like, just like Hurts. It looked like nobody in that secondary was really interested in putting him on the ground.
They did a good job there at the end of kind of like one of the. I feel like one of the linemen had a potential opportunity to get him, but I think the other one got blocked really well. Just kind of pushed out of the play at the last second, too. So yeah, my buddy's a Philly fan. He was like, he's gonna buy me an Eagles jersey. He's like, "Do you want a DeJean jersey?" I was like, "Hell no, bro. If you want me to do anything with his Eagles jersey, it's got to be Jurgens."
Right.
So
it got to be Cam.
He's ordering me a Jurgens jersey too, but I was like, no,
very cool,
DeJean, bro.
Sorry, you can't do that.
Don't like him that
cruel.
Much.
Right.
For sure. Boy, that was a steal in the draft, wasn't it, for him, though? I mean,
crazy.
That and the fact that they trade for Saquon when nobody thought Saquon was going to ever do anything in the league, and they believed in him and they got him there, and he ended up having the best season in the NFL this year by a long shot, on top of, even though he didn't perform well Sunday night, kudos to the Chiefs for really buckling down and saying, "No, you're not running the ball tonight." We're going to make Jalen Hurts beat him. And turns out they didn't need Jalen Hurts to beat him because Kansas City did a good enough job of beating themselves.
100%.
So
Cooper DeJean, like he was such a steal in the draft, mainly because defensive backs fell in the draft last year. I don't think the first one was drafted to like pick 20 or 29. So it was just one of those seasons where they were going offensive players early in the draft. And so, you had the Texans get Kamari Lassiter, who was one of the best, DBs in the NFL this year as a rookie out of Georgia. So like they had some good success there with those guys who went in the early second round. But yeah, it was almost like, I almost feel like the Eagles anticipated like Kansas City just game planning so hard to stop the run that they were going to come out there and just start throwing the ball. Like I feel like that was by design. So,
for sure. For sure. So we're here tonight not to just chat about the Super Bowl, but we're going to talk about what everybody's been talking about the last few weeks, and that is the finalization of the Nebraska coaching staff for 2025. And we'll take a look back at 2023, a little bit at 2020. Believe it or not, I have 3 overlays for 2024 alone because we had 3 basically different coaching staffs throughout the season. So, so we'll talk about those a little bit, and then we'll kind of dream a little bit about what 2025 could look like with the guys that were brought in. That overall, in my book, I think Rule made some major upgrades to his staff, especially on offense and special teams for sure. Defense is a wait and see. What will we see out of this Butler unit? And is it going
to?
Yeah, I mean, you got to love Addison Williams. You got to love the fact that Dvorak's still there. Simpson's going to be actively coaching those edge rushers. So I like where we're going. And that defensive line's probably in pretty good hands considering how well that Kansas City D-line played all year. So anyway, guys, just as a reminder, you can follow us at Gen Red Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Generation Red on your favorite podcast app. The audio for this show should drop sometime tomorrow morning. So let's take a look back, guys. Where's my I'm in the wrong spot on the screen. There it is. We're going to take a look at the 2023 coaching staff first. So here's what you had. Everybody knows the names. Everybody knows who was here and who coached what position. But just as for the sake of looking back and saying, okay, this is where we were, so we can kind of plan and map and look forward to seeing how we did in 2023, where we're going in 2024. The first thing that jumps out to me, guys, is number one, offensive coordinator. I think Satterfield was probably his first option for offensive coordinator, but likely not his first option for quarterbacks coach, because wasn't he going after
Jake Peets?
Jake Peets? That's who he really wanted to run his passing game.
Yep, and that was kind of dropped. They dropped the ball on that kind of the last, there at the last second. It was almost like anticipated that it was kind of in the works, and then once that fell through, he really didn't have time to make another hire. So I had to throw Satterfield in there, and Satterfield was also working with tight ends as well. So it was just a nightmare of a situation for him to have to just throw him into there as after being an OC as well and having a true freshman quarterback and kind of an inexperienced QB room overall for him to then have to come on, make the offense and coach the quarterbacks and deal with the tight ends. Yeah, it was just a lot. And it was a recipe for disaster for sure.
Well, then you had Bob Wager, who was originally hired to coach tight ends, and then he had his issue with the DUI and whatnot. So Josh Martin was elevated from his analyst position to be the tight ends coach. But like you said, it was largely Marcus Satterfield running that show in 2023 along with Josh. So he had a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of things on his plate, and designing an offense seemed to fall a little bit back on the wayside. And then he ended up, with Jeff Sims being an absolute disaster. Yeah. You get Heinrich Harburg coming in, who could at least carry the football and hold on to the dang thing for the most part.
He was willing to at least, try to make some kind of play, high percentage play to the best of his ability. Like he knew immediately, he knew his limitations to an extent. And I feel like Sims didn't. I feel like Sims had this idea of what quarterback he was in his head, what quarterback he could be, and he kept trying to force that. I think Harburg understood, this is where my strengths lie, this is where my weaknesses lie, and he's like, I'm just going to do whatever I can to put us in the best position to win. And that's why he was the guy who did that. Sure.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Coach?
Right. So I think when it came to that 2023, especially offensively coaching staff, I think we definitely saw when it came to Satterfield some of the warning signs that we will definitely talk about when we get to 2024 when it comes to that. But personally, I was willing to not necessarily give a pass, but with how bad the quarterback play kind of was, you know what I mean? With Jeff Sims throughout that year, it was kind of I don't know. It was hard for me to be super harsh. Now, again, there was definitely some signs of all right, we need to keep an eye on this. But it was almost okay, you were dealt a pretty bad hand in 2023 with injuries.
We were supposed to have Casey Thompson as well. That doesn't get mentioned a lot.
Right, 100%.
Well, Casey, you had three guys jump in the portal after the spring game. Richard Torres, wasn't Casey one of them?
Yeah,
and then,
Casey Thompson did it closer to before the season. Torres wasn't going to start. He was that freshman they got to San Antonio.
Yep.
But Casey Thompson was supposed to battle Jeff Sims for the job, and it was almost understood that he's willing to battle for that and wasn't leaving. And then all of a sudden it came out of the blue that he entered the portal.
Right. So when it comes to that, again, there were definitely some of the warning signs, but I was kind of at least, all right, you were dealt a pretty shit hand to start. I'll at least
we'll give you grace this year.
We'll kind of see what happens going forward, and we saw it.
That's how I was too. I was I'm not going to judge initially because and I was and throughout the season, all of the injuries that happened and stuff like that. I wasn't one of those people that just came out and was immediately shitting on Satterfield. Right? I wanted to. I was if we struggle in year 2, okay, then I can start. But the same time, a lot of things went wrong. And this team wasn't a team that won a lot of games the year prior. They lost Trey Palmer on offense. And so it wasn't supposed to be some amazing explosive offense. And yeah, like I said, year one, it's hard to sit there and just say like, oh, I'm out on this guy just from that. He tried to work.
I managed it. I had no problem with the fire sat hashtag.
He tried to work.
I
with
used
what
it liberally.
it worked out for a lot of people, but like people use that every single time, and more often than not, they jump the gun on it. And so
that's
I'm
me.
always,
I gladly admit I'm a gun jumper. I always jump the gun. I always tweet out of emotion, which is why I think this year I might delete the app off my phone and just make it tougher for me to be an idiot.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing that jumps out to me on the defensive coaching staff side of things is obviously the three guys he really trusted: Rob Dvorak, Evan Cooper being his right-hand man, an incredible talent evaluator, and of course Terrence Knighton. But the fact that he brings in a guy that had never worked with these three guys before in Tony White, and they all grasped what Tony White was wanting to do with this defense right out of the gate, and they became immediately better than they were the year before. If anything, it speaks to the ability of Matt Rule to really identify coaching talent when it comes especially to defense. In my mind, that's where he shines as a CEO coach, is seeing defense for what it needs to be and finding guys that work it as well as he does, as well as White did. And we'll see if it shows as far as John Butler is concerned. What do you think of that? Do you think I'm off base on that, or is that kind of where Rule's strength really lies? Is because his teams always have played defense. Baylor played defense. Temple played defense.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bia.
No, I was just saying, I think you're pretty spot on this, especially when it comes to, I think his strength is definitely finding defensive coaches. I think if you look through his tenure in college, I think that's pretty spot on.
Yeah. Also, like, I kind of have a little bit of a spin on this too. Like, I feel like he's good at identifying coaches when it's not like his friends, if that makes sense. Like, when he has to go out and make an alternative hire of somebody who wasn't working with him before, like, I feel like he's great at going out and finding those coaches, like Dana Holgerson, Mike Eckler, some of these other guys that haven't coached with him before. But I do feel like some of his loyalties, he brings some of these guys out of loyalty and kind of has this, high expectation for them or think what they can be. And, for instance, Satterfield, but they're not necessarily the best fit for the new place he's at, so
right.
I think he's good at identifying talent when he has to sit there and analyze, or identifying coaching talent when he has to analyze the coaches, but these guys that have been with him for so long, he probably hasn't stepped back and really analyzed like what they do, and they've been successful. So he's just kind of let them kind of have the reins. And so I think that's why he got a wake up call with a couple of these guys.
Right. No, I agree. And I think kind of an interesting, kind of thing kind of to look at is, I think, like, when it comes to that, extreme loyalty, I think you can definitely get away with that at like Baylor.
Yeah.
For sure. Temple, I think you probably still get away with it in the Big 12. Big 10 is big boy football. You know what I mean? Like, big time programs need big time coaches. You know what I mean? So I feel like
for sure.
I feel like this has definitely been kind of a wake up call, like you said, Justin, in terms of that.
Like, I feel like he didn't like what would have probably helped him is, he had him at Temple, had him at Baylor, but didn't analyze, his time at South Carolina. And I feel like if he would have stepped back and really looked at that and been like, okay, kind of saw the abject failure that was, I just feel like at a certain point when you're so comfortable with a guy and you trust him so much that you stop kind of analyzing their success and are they developing their offenses the right way? Is their offense changing with the landscape of college football? Is the offense, going to be able to be successful in the big conferences? Because SEC, obviously, it wasn't successful there. And like you said, it's just big boy football in those two conferences. So I just don't think he took the time to kind of sit back and evaluate the way he does with these outside hires. But I do appreciate the fact that unlike Scott Frost, who, stuck with his guys for year after year until it was almost like forced to, you have to get rid of these guys, that he, has the balls to make the call to, even if he doesn't fire him, at least, put them in a different position and brought somebody in. So I like that he's willing to make those decisions to put the team first.
Yeah,
I appreciate what took me a minute to understand what Texas Toast was saying here about Mr. Yogurt, but then it hit me. Oh, Dannon.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm a little slow on the uptake today, Texas Toast, but I don't know if this really has much to do with the coaching. I'm not sure if the South Stadium is really quote unquote on hold so much as they're just trying to figure out where the program's going first.
I think
under Matt Rule, and number two, then we can figure out what the best way to go forward with the stadium is, especially when it comes to getting everything connected. To me, if anything, you've got to figure out how to get South Stadium accessible to the rest of the stadium, so you're not, I'd love to go see people sitting in East Stadium, at halftime or whatever, and I freaking can't do that unless I walk completely all the way out. That's just stupid. So
I think that was the initial plan. I think that was the initial plan. Was kind of what he's talking about. But I think they just kind of put the whole thing on a pause for right now. Until they have a chance to kind of go back over that. and I'm not on board with the Go Rangers though. Toasty knows where I'm at.
I know you're a Stros fan. You're a Stros fan. You like those Astro Pop uniforms too, I'll bet, from back in the 70s.
I like those. The rainbow.
Oh man, everybody's audio keeps cutting out for me.
I like the Colt 45s.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yes. But the Astros rainbow unis, kind of with the different shades of orange. I love that jersey too. But
for sure.
No, it's not cutting out for me. By the way, I'm not hearing audio cut out.
Yeah, no, I'm good as well.
Good. I just hear it on my end, so I'm not sure if hopefully it's getting out to the stream without a problem. So anyway, anybody let us know if you happen to hear Justin or Coach pop out or cut out in the audio, so we know which way we need to go if there needs to be something fixed. Let's take a look at. Of course, we all know that special teams Ed Foley. The one, and I mentioned this in our text chat, and I was just going to mention it here. Only 4 guys that were originally hired as a part of Rule staff remain in their original positions. Now, there are 5 guys on the staff that are still with him, but only 4 of them are in their original positions. And that would be Corey Campbell at strength and conditioning coach, Rob Dvorak at linebackers, Donovan Raiola at offensive line, and EJ Barthel at running backs. Of course, Satterfield's still here, but he's in a different capacity, not working with quarterbacks or offensive coordinating. So, and kudos to Marcus as well. Coach Sat, stand-up dude, to be more than willing to say, yeah, I'll step back. I'll step back and I'll coach the tight ends. And he wants to stick around and do it. He wants to help the program however he can. I think that's pretty stand up for him. So moving on to choice. Yeah, I don't think he had a choice either, but at least
he could have moved on
to do it.
You know
he
what I
could have
mean?
moved on.
There's other things, reason why I don't have a ton of respect for Satterfield, but
I get you. I get you. I'm sure.
But I won't dive into that. Like you said, I do appreciate the fact that he was willing to step back and not make a big fuss of it or anything like that. So
sure. So here's what the 2024 coaching staff looked like through 9 games. Satterfield still was the offensive coordinator, but had switched roles to tight ends coach because Glenn Thomas was brought on to coach the quarterbacks as well as be co-offensive coordinator, if I remember correctly. Still had EJ, still had Garrett McGuire, still had Donovan Raiola, and everybody remained the same on defense except Evan Cooper had suddenly resigned in the summer, and they brought in John Butler as co-defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach. So, and it seemed to me, and I think we talked about it on a couple of shows back during the season, that there was a bit of a disconnect between especially Tony White and John Butler as far as how pass coverages were supposed to go and things like that. And it seemed like the kids got a little confused in some of the games. You're one long pass to Jeremiah Smith away from possibly beating Ohio State and Columbus, if not for a completely blown coverage. So anyway, thoughts on the 2024 staff up through game number 9. Anything on that list stick out to you that you wanted to touch on? Any of those guys?
My thing that I've always kind of jokingly kind of said, and I still kind of mean it, of like when we went through the whole offensive coordinator debacle of like, what exactly did Glenn Thomas do as the co-OC? I still have that kind of.
I think that was just a title. I think it was just
I
a kind
agree.
of a title
I
that he
do.
was given.
Yeah. No,
And
I do
they kind
agree
of
with
came
you.
out and said as much because they said that, you know, Satterfield's still going to be the play caller, but I think that was just kind of like a way to kind of also like, you know, he's coming over from the NFL as kind of an analyst of sorts with. So it's more of kind of an upgraded look position on his resume, co-OC / quarterbacks, you know. So I think it was more so little stuff like that.
Right. And I agree. And I think one of the biggest reasons I say that is you look at John Butler, I could easily see schematically the changes, you know, that he was influencing on the defense. I don't think that was quite as obvious with Glenn Thomas, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? So I agree with you. It was all just entitled, but I have been just kind of saying that in jest for what seems like to be, you know, 6-7 months now. Of like, what exactly was what exactly did you do with that part? And I think you're right. It was just pretty much entitled only.
At Thomas's introductory press conference, because I went and watched that back like a couple months ago. He talked about how it's an all-encompassing approach to the offense where each person puts in their, you know, 2 cents on it. It's a collaborative effort, but I didn't see any of that. Like,
I agree.
Because they say Matt Rule has a hand in that too. Like they'll all have a say in it. It was almost as if like they were saying that on the surface, but he was behind the scenes, just like Satterfield, do your thing. You know, otherwise adjustments would have been made throughout the season. So that leads me to believe it was less of a collaborative effort than they let us believe. Either that or Satterfield was one of those guys who just stuck in his ways and was like, I'm going to call the plays the way I call them.
Yeah.
You know, you heard rumblings too at times that everybody contributed to the playbook.
Yeah.
And the playbook was so, and I can't imagine being a true freshman trying to run an NFL size playbook right out of the gate and expect him to know and understand and do the fundamentals and all the things he has to do when he's thinking about the game too much. And, you know, maybe he should have laid off the McDonald's late at night a little more often too. That would have been pretty cool. But sorry, Dylan, didn't mean to slam you. Rule as much said so in his last kind of thing when he was asked about Dylan. So I mean, he's got some things he's got to work on personally.
Absolutely.
Get a little mobility, get his feet under him, and not have to worry about the center of gravity pulling him one way or the other.
It's the balance, kid.
Let me ask you this, Coach BA, especially you, and I think you've kind of touched on this before on your channel, Justin, as far as Foley. None of us, I think, sitting on this stream right now are a huge fan of a guy losing his gig after 1 year, especially when it's a brand new staff coming in and making changes and doing things. But man, that special teams unit was bad in 23, about as bad as it could have been. And it got worse, in my opinion, at least by my standards anyway, in 2024.
Yeah.
Was that a mistake bringing him on in the first place? I mean, I know you trust the guy, but man, he was good with the high school coaches. He got us in so good with all those high schools because of his ability to get out and glad hand people. So it's good he's retained for that purpose. I'm glad he's here as a high school liaison or whatever his position is, high school relations, something like that. So that's a good thing. But maybe the position he was in to begin with was way over his head, especially in the Big Ten, where everybody's good at special teams for the most part.
Right. Yeah, that just seemed like a weird fit. And again, we talked about kind of giving Satterfield a little bit of the benefit a little bit after 1 year, but it was tough with Ed Foley. I mean, it was tough. And we've said it a bunch of times, like even when things were going horrific this year, as a coach myself, I will never go on any stream and ever call for anyone just to be fired, just because that's just not how I operate. I'm not saying that people that do are wrong by any means. I just, as myself as a coach who I'll tell you right now, has been fired in what I thought was a shitty way. I've been on a coaching staff where people, all over social media saying all these guys need to be fired. Like, I don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean? But
right.
I will also now say that, like, I'm not disagreeing with anyone that was saying that after year one. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't disagreeing with anybody.
I understand their point.
Yes, 100%.
And to an
Go ahead,
extent,
Justin.
like we had a true freshman kicker at the same time, so I think we gave a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there because we didn't know what we had, coming into 2023 and 2024 with Alvano. And so I think he got a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there as well, because we're just like, maybe, it's the kicker that's the problem. One of the things I do know that we did have an issue with, and I had an issue with, is still the lack of ability to return kicks and punts. And another thing too, he was the assistant special teams coach over in Carolina from 2000 to 2022, I believe, right before he came over. And their special teams wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination, but they only missed 2 field goals that season. So maybe, him being the assistant, Matt Rule, thought like, okay, he had a lot to do with that, brought him over. And in that first season, again, probably had a lot of the, the same things that we were talking about with Alvano, not understanding. But yeah, it was definitely because I don't remember near as many execution issues that stood out as that they did in 24 and 23. Yeah. So at the point they regressed was absolutely the point that you got to put that on coaching. And so I think in 2023, even though it, hindsight's 2020, he ultimately did get fired. I think in 23 we were fair to just say, I think it was a fair assessment to say, like, let's give him another year.
Right. No, I hear you on that for sure.
Had he had
with Satterfield, he was kind of given a tough hand. To try to succeed with.
Yeah, and it's more of like, we don't know what we have at the kicker position. We just didn't know. So there was other question marks that weren't just him. And like I said, the execution issues weren't as we were missing field goals, but the execution issues were less. There was less that you can point to and say, this is in the actual execution of what's going on with each part of the field goal, the snap, the hold, all that stuff. And when that regressed in 2024, like, have we seen that stuff from 2024 and 2023? I would have probably questioned it a bit more. Like, is this the right guy? But we didn't see that until last year. So, it's just a good thing that we got rid of him. But yeah, we do need to see some more returns, because that is becoming a big issue.
I have some. I'll save it for when we get to the Mike Eckler talk. But I have some questions for both of you, so I'll save it. But when it comes to philosophically, I have some questions. So we can keep going. Sure. But got something for you later.
You're good. You're good. That's right. That's why you're here. So then games 10 through 12, obviously the Satterfield experiment was over. It was time to move on. It was time to do something you rarely see especially in modern college football, moving on from a coordinator, bringing in a guy from the outside, and Dana Holgorsen, who, best I understood, Rule knew. They weren't quote unquote buddies, but they knew each other, and he had played it, obviously coached against Holgorsen a couple of times. And from games 10 through 12, we saw definitely a difference in that offense. I think I saw a better offense against USC, although it was still quite a bit of work in progress, but man, was a thing of beauty against Wisconsin. And then once again, Kinnick happened, and guys like Isaiah Nayor suddenly forgot how to catch a football when it's hitting them in hands.
Yeah. It looked great there too, but just weren't scoring touchdowns.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. And then we move into the bowl game once they get bowl eligible, which was wonderful to know we're going to go to a bowl game. Then at that point, that was when Garrett Satterfield, good Lord. Garrett McGuire moves on to Texas Tech to take a position there. Phil Simpson comes in to coach the edge and the outside linebacker positions. Who the heck was coaching defensive line for the bowl game? Was that kind of a collaborative effort? Was it Rule kind of paying attention to that? Because I knew he was big on defense and defensive line.
My theory is that it was Yeah, I
Go
don't
ahead.
know for sure. Obviously, my guess, just theory, is that it would be a collaborative effort. Just considering the amount of just coaches and analysts and everyone you can have in today's college football. It's
Yep.
the unlimited. So that would be my guess. I could be completely wrong on that. I just personally, I mean, I follow college. I follow Nebraska pretty well. I don't know who the one guy in charge of it was, so that's why I don't know. That my theory is it was a collaborative effort, I guess.
Okay.
I would say it was a collaborative to an extent, but I would say John Butler had a really big hand in getting those guys ready on the front for sure.
Right.
Okay.
Especially because of what he was going to be doing and the variety of fronts that he was going to be using that they weren't used to, or that were just kind of, they didn't have as many of those fronts throughout the season, in one game. Like he was just doing a little bit of multiple looks up front. I guarantee you he did a lot of coaching with those guys to get them ready for that.
Right. No, I agree with you. But I also think that just him being that DC for that game. I mean, obviously he's the full-time DC now, but even just being the interim DC, I feel like even if we still had Terrence Knighton, if he was going to change some things up, he was still probably going to have to be pretty heavily involved because that was going to have the most change going into the bowl game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So no, I'm agreeing with you. I think even if Terrence Knighton was still there, I feel like he probably would have had to just be so heavily involved just because
agreed.
The back end already, knew his stuff. We didn't see very many changes there. It was more obviously in that, front core group.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yep.
So,
and, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Justin.
No, I was just talking about but you already mentioned him, Garrett McGuire, moving on to go under his dad at Texas Tech. So
yeah, he left December 11th, or at least it was announced December 11th. So I'm assuming Holgorsen, if I remember correctly, he was coaching the wide receivers in the bowl game, if I remember correctly. So
yes,
which Jamal Banks looked pretty good. I was like, where was that guy all year? Making the catches he made, especially on third down. He played his butt off.
I think the biggest thing is he made them practice with effort and play with effort. I think he really put the onus on them when he came in. He's like, listen, if you're not giving effort, you're not going to be on the field. And I think he made that pretty clear.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you, Justin. But I'm just saying it blows my freaking mind that it took Dana Holgorsen coming that to
agreed.
Like I'm agreeing with you. That is exactly what happened, and I think it's pretty clear that's what happened. Just by things said, just watch the film and all that. But like, it blows my freaking mind that it took someone else coming in for that to happen. I'm just saying it
was lazy coaching with no accountability, and which went against exactly what they were trying to say the whole time. Where we have the standard of physicality and all that. An effort, and it seemed to be that way on the defensive side of the ball, but the offense was just seemed very lazy and lackadaisical on every single play,
Yeah.
So
sure.
Holgorsen coming in, setting a new standard. He's like, this isn't gonna. And even when he came in and watched them practice the week or so, and he immediately called out and asked, why is Emmett Johnson not getting the majority of the touches? And literally said that. And that, right there was the reason why you saw all of a sudden Emmett Johnson get injected in this offense a bit more, because he immediately came in and was just confused about some of the details of why this player wasn't being utilized. Like why are these guys splitting snaps? This is your better talent. This is your better player right here,
Right.
Yeah.
So I think at that point he knew he had to get control of the offense and get him working.
Good point, for sure. So now we move on to what we're going to see in a coaching staff next season, which I noticed I made a mistake on that last slide. I forgot to take Tony White out of there and put John Butler into that. That's what you get for copy pasting and not paying attention to the details, which is why I would never be a good coach.
Been there.
So there you go. You've got obviously the same 5 guys are going to be back on offense. You got Satterfield on the tight ends, Raiola on offensive line, running backs by Barthel, and Glenn Thomas, I'm guessing, is just coaching quarterbacks. He's not a co-OC anymore because that's truly Dana Holgorsen's show.
Correct.
I love the idea that this is all Dana Holgorsen is going to do, because his best coaching and the best production any of his offenses had was when he was strictly an offensive coordinator for Texas Tech and West Virginia, or not what? Yeah, West Virginia
West
one
Virginia.
year, and then wasn't he an offensive coordinator at Houston too for a while? I don't remember for sure. Oklahoma State.
He's a head
Oklahoma
coach.
State.
Yeah. He was under Gundy at Oklahoma State.
Yep.
Yeah, he got a lot of his
that year in 2010
there,
when
yep.
Taylor went off
Yep.
for 343 through the air.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good game. That was a fun game.
And I think go ahead, sorry.
No, and then you look at the defense. Of course, there's a lot of different names. You got Phil Simpson, John Butler, Terry Braden on defensive line. Now that he's not with the Kansas City Chiefs, finally, yay. Addison Williams at defensive backs. I know you did some deep dives on some of these coaches on your show a couple of times. Justin, is there one coach you see on that list aside from the offense? You're looking strictly at defense. Who's the guy you're really fired up about that's going to probably make an immediate difference in the way this defense plays?
You know, outside of the obvious, like, because, you know, Phil Simpson's an obvious answer just because of his ties to Florida. You know, he's been, you know, here before us, but Addison Williams for me. Him as a defensive backs coach, like, he has had nothing but success. And, you know, what transpired with him at his previous stop is he had a successful offense or defense. Anytime he was in full control, when he was the DC, when they, you know, because people ask what happened in 2024. Well, what happened was they brought on a co-defensive coordinator that also got fired 7 games into the season, and the defense significantly regressed. Anytime he was in charge of the defense, they improved. And he had, you know, 2 players in the Senior Bowl. Like, he's known for turning over talent, but he has this aggressive style of defensive backs. And I think that's where he fits perfectly into what John Butler wants to do. He's really good with, like, the attacking style, downhill style with the defensive backs. But yeah, like, I'm trying to remember some of the statistics that I had written up for that show about just how much he improved those defenses. But it was an opportunistic defense that he turned it into, very, you know, with turnovers. They were just an aggressive defense and trying to force turnovers as well. But yeah, a lot of people look at that 2024 and ask what happened. And that's exactly what happened. They brought in a co-OC for God knows what or co-DC for God knows what reason. And, you know, that's what ruined the defense for him. So you can't, like, that when people just look at the numbers and are just like, well, what about that season? That wasn't just him. And mind you, that guy got fired, you know, 7 games into the season, and he didn't. So yeah. And they lost
UCF, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was that DC at UCF for Malzahn? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. They lost a metric ton of players too that offseason,
Sure.
but still a lot of it had to do with how abysmal the co-DC was that they brought in there. It's still a head scratcher as to why they even did that.
Right.
So how's that going to work dynamics wise within the coaching staff, having a guy that's got DC experience coming in to coach the DBs? We saw how that worked last year and it looked a little sketchy at times. Or is he more aligned with John Butler than, say, Butler would have been with White? What do you think?
I think he's bought in because Butler has a lot more coaching experience and NFL experience. And so I think he understands the dynamic here. Like, okay, I can learn a lot from this guy. So, you know, I think he's going to, you know, relish the opportunity. And I think that's why he was willing to take, you know, defensive back coach spot to be able to come and play under him. Because I think he's really kind of excited to come in and learn from a guy who has as much experience as Butler has and has been at some of the places Butler has, because that's going to give him an opportunity to grow as well. So I don't think there'll be any issue with the dynamic at all. I think he's fully bought into what, you know, the expectation is going to be. I think he's fully bought into kind of, you know, his role in the staff. And I think too, it just gives him, you know, like I said, that opportunity to learn and grow as a coach. And I you know, it's one of those things where it's like, that's invaluable because you don't a lot of times get to choose who you coach under, you know?
Right.
And so yeah, that's big for him.
Right.
The one on the offensive side, coach, or do you need to?
Oh, I was just going to say, defensively, like, you guys can call me crazy for this and I don't care. I'm more excited for Coach Addison as the DB's coach than I was Butler as the DB's coach. I'm not even really using that as
Oh
a
yeah,
shot
me
against
too.
John Butler, but like I'm so excited for
Me too.
coach, Jordan Addison to be here. I don't even really mean that as a shot against John Butler. I just think the align, just how we talked about schematically, I think they're going to be a lot more aligned. I think he's coming in here. He's coached in college more recently. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's going to be fantastic. And again, some of that Florida connections, it's very good to have him as well. Like, the more connections you have in Florida, the better. I think we all agree with that. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? So I'm very excited to have him there defensively.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. It's a perfect fit. I just think him coming in and working under Butler is a perfect fit too. So he's a pretty good talent identifier. Doesn't have a lot of people under his belt in terms of recruiting, but has some pretty good players in terms of development and stuff like that. So, so yeah, I think it's a perfect fit.
And I know we want to get to I know you're chomping at the bit to get to special teams, Coach. Is there somebody on that offensive side? I mean, we've got, other than Holgerson, do you see Glenn Thomas maybe getting some major movement forward with Dylan this year, since he's not going to quote unquote be co-OC anymore? Do you see a difference in the tight ends now that somebody like Fedoni is out of the room, and you've got Heinrich, who looks like he's put on 25 pounds of muscle and explosiveness already this offseason? I don't know.
Personally,
where do you think the offense goes?
Personally, the thing I'm just most excited for offensively is that Dana Holgerson is going to have an entire offseason being the offensive coordinator. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the biggest thing for me. Is obviously we can say whatever about the positional coaches, but like, I'm so excited for him. I think everything we see offensively, I think that's why we will see a big jump offensively, is strictly because of Dana Holgerson. I think one of the analogies that I've kind of heard is Dana Holgerson will be the head coach of the offense, if that makes sense. Like, he will be completely in charge of all of that, and I think that's a very good thing, just seeing obviously his track record with everything and just seeing the improvement that he made just from, the day that he started coordinating that offense as it is. So that's the thing offensively I'm most excited for, is just him being in full control through the whole offseason, through spring ball, then obviously once we get into summer and open up the season next year.
I think
I'm
that was
assuming the same is true for you, Justin. I know it is for me.
I was assuming one of the probably the stipulations for him to come on board was for him to be in full control of that offense, which is also why I think they removed the co-OC role from Glenn Thomas as well. And I think we're going to have the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. I think John Butler is going to be the head coach of that defense too. And I think what Matt Rule wants is to be able to kind of oversee all of this. But yeah, I think he's got his guys where he wants them in control. And I love, naturally, y'all know how I feel about Holgerson. I've broken it down time and time again, every number you possibly can on why his offense, how it improved just from UCLA to USC, so on and so forth, the things that he's done to make it life easier on Raiola, and to get a full install in the offseason, to get a full, buy-in to his offense and have everybody on board with it, but also a full offseason for him to identify more of the talent of what he has on this roster, and be able to kind of go out there and see if maybe there are some people on this roster that, were kind of hidden on the depth chart that have an opportunity to come in and make some noise. But also at the same time, what was very important is at the end of the season, he put an offense out there that players want to come play for. He put something on film to show an offense that that skill position players in the portal can point to and be like, I want to go play in that offense. I see the potential of that offense. Whereas under Satterfield, had we finished the season with Satterfield, I don't know if players would have been chomping at the bit to come play in that offense, So I think that was the most important part of it, was having something to put on tape to end the season and be like, no, this is going to be our offense next year. We want you to be a focal point in this offense. And, he went out and got his guys. I do have some numbers on the Addison Williams. I was able to find my my Word doc too.
Go ahead.
About his his under UCF. So in 2021, UCF's pass efficiency defense improved 97 spots nationally, ranking 7th in college football. They allowed 89.1 or fewer passing yards per game compared to the previous season. And then in 2023, as defensive coordinator, he allowed the fewest passing yards per game in the Big 12 Conference at 196.7 yards. Defense ranked third in team pass efficiency defense at 120.32. And only 12 touchdown passes were permitted by their defense, the fewest since 2001. So pretty impressive.
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm kind of looking at the CFBstats.com, and in 2023, their total defense at UCF was ranked 83rd, and their total defense in 2024 was ranked 37th. So that's quite the improvement.
Yep.
In spite of the fact that they brought in a co-OC they had to fire halfway through the year. So
yeah, and it was more so like last year their defense actually, contrary to what the stats say, though, they gave up a lot more points, touchdowns, and stuff like that too. So the defensive performance overall, just watching it on the field, wasn't that great last season.
So go ahead, Coach. You said you've got something for special teams. What's on your mind? We've got Mike Eckler coming in, who had one of the best special team units in the SEC.
Right. So I am very, very, very excited for Mike Eckler to come in. I think that is a home run hire. It's about the best hire that you could absolutely make. Here's the one question, and when I made an appearance last week on No Block, No Rock, I asked them this question, and I think it kind of stumped them a little bit as well. So I'd like to kind of get your guys' thoughts on it. So when we talk about all the issues that we've had special teams-wise, philosophically, right, I think I kind of disagree with Rule when he talked about schematically a little bit, but hey, it is what it is. I think the biggest issue is just philosophically when it came to returning punts, situational awareness, all that sort of thing, right? Okay. So first question I'll ask you guys is, do you think that a lot of the philosophical issues that we saw last season was a Matt Rule thing or an Ed Foley thing?
Well, I think we can say some of the philosophical things were probably more of a Matt Rule thing, but I think the execution was definitely Foley.
Right.
The execution's got to be on the coach, and the philosophy. I'd lay the philosophy side on Matt Rule. He says one thing in a press conference where they want to be aggressive, want to do this, but then it seems like in game, maybe they have a plan to return some stuff.
Right.
And maybe it comes along. I mean, you had one good kickoff return all damn year against Wisconsin with Ja'Cory Barney taking it like 52 or something like that out to past midfield, and that kick started that game. You know, you get one of those a game, that's worth 3 to 7 points.
I 100% agree with you. So if we're saying that philosophically, it probably is, a Matt Rule kind of thing. My question is, we hired the home run special teams coordinator position, right? I think we agree kind of on that. Does that change anything in 2025 though?
It does. It does, because you got to look at the offense and defense. He gave them full control. Right. It's not like it was whereas a collaborative effort before where he's trying to have a say in it. It's probably going to be the same exact things with special teams, because he's a guy that he knows has had special team success at multiple Power 5 schools and big time programs. And he's kind of a mastermind in his own way of special teams. So yeah, absolutely. I think he's going to have full control.
If that's how it goes, I'm 100% completely on board. That is what I want to happen. That is just the question. I think that's probably what happens, but I do think it's at least a question, if that makes sense. Do you get what I'm saying? Of like, I just have, because then my other thing is, if we say it was an Ed Foley thing, then my other question, I had a question for you guys either way of, then why didn't the head coach step in and change that philosophically?
But even if the expectation, or even if the philosophy stays the same and the execution gets better, we're still okay with that. That's the thing.
I 100% agree with you.
Either way, we're going to be fine.
No, I 100% agree with you. I would like to see changes special teams wise philosophically. It just goes against a lot of things I believe in, what we've done the last 2 years. And I think so it goes against some of the things said publicly, which also kind of gets under my skin a little bit.
Gets under your skin. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And go ahead.
I'm with you. I think philosophically, I think you're dead right, Justin. If he's given full control of the defense, he's given full control of the offense. I don't think Mike Eckler gets hired unless he puts his foot down and says, you better let me do this and run it the way I want to run it, and stay the hell
100%.
away from me on the sideline. Just stay the hell away from me. Let me do
Right.
my thing.
Especially
And then
coming over
Rule
from
can
Tennessee.
worry about the freaking clock for once. That would be kind of nice.
Yeah, I think with everything, he almost wants to kind of be just like a general, like, head coach, general manager type of look over this. I think he wants to be able to focus on coaching aspects like that, focus on, kind of the way, he's doing the personnel, because he's talking about, the 53-man roster. I think he's trying to go a little bit more of the NFL style, even with the staff. But I guarantee you, one of the things pulling Eckler over from Tennessee was for him to have control of that. And another thing too, along with that is, also got to ask the question, was he just not confident in our ability to punt return and stuff like that with, how bad the special teams were? Or did he just not feel the personnel were right, because we had IGC, maybe he didn't feel comfortable in any one punt returner. That's just a couple of theories. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think for sure bringing Eckler over from Tennessee, I don't think he leaves a program like Tennessee unless he's got that same control.
I do agree with you. I do 100% agree with you. That was just kind of a question that I had in my mind as I was kind of going
it's a fair
through
question.
things. You know what I mean, though?
Excellent question, and I agree. And only a coach would come up with that question, right? I want to say a huge thank you to the 75 people on Twitter that are watching us tonight. Thank you so much, and thank you for those of you who have participated. Strangely enough, we've got absolutely nobody on YouTube. That's weird. That's
slacking.
Not normal. It's
slacking.
Yeah, they're slacking. So, the other question I had, guys, when it comes to or not question, just a comment. The fact that Corey Campbell's name is like never mentioned ever in any kind of negative fashion. I mean, you hear all about him.
Right.
You know all about him once you see those kids come out on the field in the fall and you go, holy cow, they've worked. But the fact that you never hear whether his job is even remotely, I mean, his seat's so cold he could freeze,
Right.
freeze his meat on it. So
I think he is residing in Lincoln, Nebraska as long as he wants to. You you know what I'm like? As long as he wants to be here, I think he is he's in a very good spot. And this
the
program,
soft tissue injuries or the lack thereof, to me, is so key.
Yeah,
that they've got these
he's been
guys.
Key to the. He's been, I think, the kind of secret weapon to a lot of this improvement of this, under the radar team of just. He's kind of been the backbone, I feel like, and it's a huge part of a college program, because especially in the off season, like, I'll be real, in the off season, these guys are seeing him more than they're seeing Matt Rule for the most part. I mean, there may be some outliers, with some of the star players, whatever, but like for the most part, these guys are all with Coach Campbell every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's always the one that gets to lead them on the field, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's
the tunnel.
Pretty clear. Strength and conditioning, definitely not an issue, and I think most people recognize that for sure. Yeah, so he's killing it. Like you pointed to, soft tissue injuries; those are an issue a lot of times when you do have, they're not preparing the right way in the weight room and stuff like that. And so, yeah, there's just a million things we could point to as to why he's got no negative light shined on him for sure.
All righty, guys. Well, that pretty much wraps up the first part of the show where we're talking about the coaches. We'll take a few minutes here in a bit to talk about the spring game or the lack thereof, or what we think we could see for one. But before we do, we are grateful to be a part of the Herd at Sports Network, and they have set us up with a partner in Underdog Sports. It's the easiest way to play fantasy sports. All you have to do to jump on board and have some fun along with us is to download their app. Sign up, deposit a minimum of $10, and use the code GENRED, GENRED, all one word, and you can receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash to make some picks with, and a free bonus pick. So join us over at Underdog Fantasy Sports, where it's easy to play and a heck of a lot of fun too. So there we go. Got that out of the way. Coach, how long do you still have before you need to blast off out of here?
We got some time. We can talk for a little bit.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we didn't.
I do appreciate that. At some point, if I get a phone
because I know
call,
you want to talk about. I know I want to
No,
talk
yeah.
about what you've got going
Right,
on and
right.
why you have to leave here in a little bit, which is really cool. I mean, really, really freaking cool.
I appreciate that.
So let's just talk about it. Matt
right.
Rule said it. Not going to be a spring game.
Yeah.
Not going to throw his players out there. Number one, to risk injury. Number two, to risk being poached by other teams. I've heard two sides of the spectrum. In fact, I heard both sides of the spectrum on the No Block, No Rock
Right.
show that you were on, BA, and the fact that, yeah, well, everybody's poaching people anyway. It seems like a weak excuse. And I'm like, nah, hey, this is where we're at now. You want to pay a dude $7 million a year, the coach should be, or seven figures, the coach should have the right to say, yeah, I'm keeping him here and I'm keeping him healthy. I'm not throwing this on TV.
That's
Screw
kind of
you,
my
BTN.
thoughts.
It doesn't do us any good anyway, and it's really not a good game except for the first quarter and a half. So, I mean, there's going to be a spring showcase, I think is what Texas Toast had mentioned in the chat earlier. I'd just be curious. Number one, what do you guys think about no spring game? And number two, what do you think we could end up seeing in its place?
I'm kind of just I don't really care that much. Like, as the fan in me, am I a little disappointed that I won't be able to? Like, I was super excited to watch the spring game last year, seeing Dylan for the first time. But like, I kind of think I understand the whole tampering thing, but I was kind of more leaning towards the isn't the tampering kind of happening anyway? Like, but here's my other thing. When I thought about it more, and I kind of talked through my thoughts a little bit on that No Block, No Rock show we talked about, I was kind of, as I was talking, kind of talking myself out of it of like, if Matt Rule thinks it's going to help slow down a lot of the tampering, then hey, I'll trust him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really care that much. I'm not super heated one way or the other. My first initial thoughts, I'll just be honest, of just like, does it really slow down the tampering that much? But the more I thought about it, the more I talked about it, I trust Matt Rule when it comes to that. If he thinks it's a benefit, then who am I to say that it's not? You know what I mean? Like, I'll trust him on that. Personally, as a fan, am I a little disappointed? Sure, but I really don't. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. You know what I mean?
Yep. Go ahead, Justin. What do you think?
Yeah, and we talked about this on my show, believe the last stream, and my thoughts on it are this. I agree with him. I know the spring game, the reason fans like the spring game is because we go so long without football, and that's kind of like our, okay, like we're getting there moment, right? And we also, because we're hearing a lot about different stuff about this player, it's a chance to see that. Where I do think he is correct in his notion of this is potentially detrimental in terms of, tampering and stuff like that. Well, we see it all the time because of how many people get out there and play, and players that haven't necessarily played for Nebraska yet or played in Dana Holgerson's offense yet. All of a sudden they go out there and put on a showcase, and it's televised. Tampering may happen regardless, but those moments won't happen. And that's how teams will then know who, okay, like they see talent, this guy, they scout that game and see like, oh, he had a good performance. Let's try to go after him. Whereas if that's happening behind closed doors in practice, they don't know that, so I like the idea to not do it. Again, the fan thing, I get it. But the spring game has kind of regressed in its allure and kind of excitement anyways, as they've constantly stripped it back little by little. There's less hitting and stuff like that, but you look at the couple injuries that we had in the spring game last year too. It's given these guys a little bit more time to prepare to get on the field. But I think it, again, injuries are going to happen no matter what. But when you have guys out there in a game, simulated game format, I do think that increases the likelihood that injuries will happen because they're flying around a little bit more, trying to make a play, trying to show, themselves, as a worthy roster spot, and stuff like that, more so than they would in practice because they're getting out there in the game. And what better way to do that than to put on a show for the coaches and the fans in a game format? So I agree 100% with what he's saying, and I think it's an overall good move. The spring game, like I said, it's been dialed back a pretty good bit. The one thing that I did like about the spring game is it's benefiting recruiting, because you get recruits out there and
bunch of visitors out there. Yeah,
they see like how many fans show up to the spring game and stuff like that. I think there's an added benefit there, but I do think that it benefits us more than it hurts us to get rid of it.
I agree. I think it's a net positive. For me, it starts and ends with injuries. Injuries are going to happen regardless. They're going to scrimmage 3 times anyway in the spring. But if you don't have the extra juice that comes with 60,000 people in the stands, that may make you try a little harder to make a play than you normally would. That may pop a hammy or pop a ACL, like we saw with a couple of guys that likely were going to be major contributors in 2024, namely Bly Hill and Demetrius Bell. I mean, how much harder would Isaiah Nayor have tried maybe if Bell wasn't breathing down his neck all year long?
Yeah.
How much more would we have seen production? How many more guys maybe would have been open more often had there been a Demetrius Bell available to play in 12 games for Dylan? Bly Hill, maybe we don't lose that game at Ohio State if he's out there playing instead of somebody who wasn't really fast enough to cover Jeremiah Smith.
Right.
But I mean, and that's all a bunch of what ifs, but those are what ifs that we wouldn't have had to worry about if those 2 guys didn't get hurt in that game. And people are going to get hurt. I get it. But still, 2 major dudes that we thought were going to be penciled in starters at the beginning of spring.
And would Bell have been a returner? Would we have had a return?
Would we have had would Ed Foley still have a job?
No.
No. I'm just messing. But what do you think we're going to see? A spring showcase? I mean, I know I've kind of heard that term get thrown about. Are we going to see maybe like what we got to watch, Coach, where we see like an 1890 style?
I think that's what it's going to be for sure.
They have to
maybe
do
more focus.
It's going to be similar to what they did at the end of spring last year that y'all got to go see. Absolutely.
They definitely are going to, but I think we all agree they got to do something to get people to get in that stadium, because I do think it is a benefit. It's even a benefit financially. Look at a lot of the other spring games throughout the country. Like, no one's putting that many people there. So I do think that they're going to do something. I think if I had to guess, it'd be kind of like that 1890 practice that we went to. And hey, hopefully it's another 1890 practice and all that money goes directly to the NIL. That's personally what I'd like. As much as I do like the University of Nebraska, I would prefer the money go to 1890 and go directly to the kids, or the players. I guess probably shouldn't be calling them kids, but you know what I mean. Sure. I would much rather the money go directly to them. And I'm not even saying I don't enjoy giving money to the University of Nebraska. Everyone, Lord knows I give them enough money anyway, but you know what I mean? I would like to see if, they do something cool like that, be able to go directly into the NIL.
I'd love to see like an entire day, kind of like the spring game already is. People are obviously going to probably show up early and they're going to tailgate. But if they had stuff to do surrounding kind of the stadium for different family activities that could go around, or the Haymarket could have a bunch of special stuff going on in the Haymarket, and then band day, or you've got a concert coming up after whatever they do in the stadium. Bring Chris Stapleton or somebody in like that. Or I mean, they had Scotty McCreery, I think, was the guy that came in and did a concert after the volleyball game, which we stuck around for like 45 minutes of it. It was really good. I mean, he was really good, but
that'll encourage more people to get out there too. Yeah.
Yep. Bring in a concert, bring in, Metallica. That'd be cool.
I think that would generate more revenue than an actual spring game would.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
And make it a package deal. You could show up and watch the practice, but if you want to stay for the concert, this is how much that is.
Yeah.
This amount of money is going to go to the artist. This amount of money is going to go to the NIL. This amount of money is going to go to a local food bank or whatever. Make it charitable, NIL, make it worthwhile for everybody. I think it'd be cool. And I have no doubt that Troy Dannon and Matt Rule have got some great ideas in the tank. And I'd love to see like a flag football game or something where the defense tries to beat the offense Offense
Yeah.
plays defense, defense plays offense. Something
7
fun
on
like
7.
that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
Pro Bowl style.
Yep, Pro Bowl style. Absolutely. God,
Yeah.
that would be fun.
Yeah,
That
it
would be
would.
so fun. And I would love every minute of it. And you guys would have to come up here so we could hang out and
Oh,
actually do a
you're
real
da-
show
yeah.
around the table.
That'd be
Yeah,
fun.
no, that'd be cool.
That'd be fun for sure.
All right, Coach. What do you have going on, man? I know you got to leave here pretty soon. And I'm dying to know why. I don't know why you're leaving.
Well, at some point in the next, I don't even know how long. I'm waiting on a phone call. So I won't go into the whole big long spiel just because that's just not necessarily the type of guy I am. But I will say, from the time that I was a little kid, like every kid kind of dreams of going playing college football, going to play in the NFL. Like I obviously kind of had those dreams. Now, being 5'10", that was never realistic for me. But I will say, like I had those dreams, but like I always knew I wanted to coach. I wanted to coach. I knew I wanted to be a head like high school football coach. That's been a really big dream and goal of mine. And I can say the phone call I'm waiting on, there's a school board meeting going on right now that will be approving me as the new head football coach at Uniontown High School. Then we got a little graphic that got put together. This is just it's kind of still surreal. I accepted this job a little bit over a week ago, and it's still kind of sinking in that this is like real, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? I've coached in some really good places, but this is going to be my first shot as the head guy. I will be the youngest head coach in the state of Kansas in 2025. So that's, I feel like, a pretty big deal. But yes, that is kind of what I'm waiting on. Like I said, I've got a phone call from a superintendent that should be happening at some point in the next little bit to say that everything's official. But I've already, signed contract, did everything. You guys just know how all the official, it's got to be approved by school boards and all that. Now that it's official. But yeah, that's kind of what's been going on with me. I've been super busy with the Kansas Elite stuff, but yes, my last week or so has been working on putting together a staff and everything and getting things ready to go, man.
So, weird geography question. How far are you going to have to drive to go to work? I mean, where is Uniontown associated? Maybe for guys like me up here in Lincoln, if I wanted to come watch you coach your first game, how far am I going to have to drive?
You would be driving a long way. It's probably about it's probably about 40 minutes south, 45 minutes south of where I live right now. Which will be a little bit of a haul, but for right now, I mean,
is that down by Kansas, south of Kansas City then?
Yeah, it's
okay.
It's probably more like middle of the state in terms of like north to south. It's kind of more towards the middle.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a real small community, but I'll say, here's what I'll tell you guys on how, just if you guys are kind of interested in how this behind the scenes stuff happened with me. I'm not going to say the name of the school just for things, but I was all but signed to be a co-offensive coordinator and passing game coordinator at another high school in the Kansas City area. That was all but done. The only reason it wasn't done was because I had a couple head coaching interviews that I hadn't heard back from. That was the only thing I was waiting on, is to see and be real. I didn't know if any of them were going to happen. And then I get a call from Uniontown that, hey, they want me to come down and, they want me to come down and go. And I remember being like, I don't know, I kind of really like this other thing, but I'm going to go down there and see what happens. And I remember going in there just kind of as, hey, we're going to see. And I got in my car after leaving there and I was like, holy shit, I really want this job. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of sold me why I was sitting there and just talking to them. I was like, I really feel like I'm the coach that they need right now. Just for whatever reason, maybe that's very arrogant of me to say, but I feel like they're right there. And I feel like I can make the difference. And I feel like that is what I was put on this earth to do, is impact these young men's lives in a positive way, using the game of football, but it's so much bigger than football. And so that went very well. They offered me the job there. I talked to the other school and I was like, hey, I'm, pretty cool with the head coach there. And I told him the situation. He said, the fact that you're even still considering this is crazy. I can tell you want this head coach job. You need to go take it. And please take it or I'm pulling your job offer here, man, because this is a really good opportunity. This is a good opportunity for you. He said, I really want you here, but this is a really good spot for you to go, do what you can do. And this is something you've always dreamed of. So you need to go take it. So Yeah, that's kind of, it was very, I'll tell you, like 2 weeks ago, that is not the way I kind of envisioned this going. But I'm incredibly thrilled and I'm humbled by the opportunity. Like I truly am. Cause like I said, I am going to be the youngest head coach in the state of Kansas by about 3 or 4 years. So it's kind of a big deal. I'm 25 years old and I'm going to be head high school coach down here. And yeah, I'm very excited. And yeah, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to kind of talk about that on here. It's the first time I've talked about it publicly, really. But yeah, yeah, I'm very excited. It's kind of a big deal. And like I said earlier, it's still kind of surreal right now. I'm telling you, it's being like it's probably already been voted on. I'm just waiting on the phone call, but like it still seems surreal to me of, calling, trying to find my O-line guy and, getting coordinator situations figured out. It's
Call
a
up that
surreal
Foley.
moment.
I hear he's looking for a job.
Yeah, he is very good with high school coaches, but I think I might pass on that.
I hear he's looking for a job.
But yeah, no, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about that. It's something I'm obviously very passionate and excited for, and yeah.
So how many coaches can you hire at a high school like that? Or what is it, a class A, class B, 11, 8-man? What
So
kind of
what it would
football?
be if it was in if it was in Nebraska, it would be a class C is what it
Okay.
would be if it was in Nebraska. Coaching staff
What's
wise,
the
it's still
classes? Do y'all do like 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A?
right. Yeah, it's a 2A school is what it is.
Okay.
So it's one of the smaller ones
Gotcha.
here in Kansas. But in terms of coaching staff side, it's still being determined, is what I'll tell you. I don't have the exact number. We're going to see.
Excuse me.
We're going to see what we get, what we can do, and we're still working some of that stuff out. So I don't have an exact number on coaches for you at this moment. But yeah, no, we're definitely gonna we got a few. I have a whole new coaching staff to hire. So
How cool, how crazy is that?
it's crazy. Yeah, it's definitely crazy. It's like I said, it's still pretty surreal to me at this moment.
Offensive philosophy?
We're gonna be running spread, and we're still gonna run the ball. It's obviously still high school football, but we're gonna spread it out quite a bit. And I'm offensively kind of a very simple guy, and some coaches have actually, I'll just tell you, have kind of talked down a little bit on some of my offensive philosophy on the way we kind of ran things. But my retort to them was the last offense I coached in, we averaged 40 points a game. So if you think it's too simplistic, I don't know.
Still ain't stopping.
You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of my only retort to that. But we're gonna
You go fast? Are you fast pace or do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I got some tricks up my sleeve. I don't know who's gonna be.
Gotcha.
Someone might be listening to this.
We got a budding Chip Kelly here.
Hey, I got some things cooking. Defensively, we're gonna see. I'm still playing around with some things. We're gonna see. We're gonna see what happens DC wise. I got some guys lined up to interview. We're gonna see what happens defensively. So we're still playing around with some things there. So defensively, I don't have as definitive of an answer. I have some ideas, but I just don't want to say publicly.
Multiple front? Are you going to go with a base front of some sort? What are you thinking?
We're looking at a 4-2-5, but again, things could still change. We're still messing with some ideas. It'll depend on what that DC spot ends up looking like.
All right. You got anything, Justin, for him?
Oh, just congratulations, man.
Thank you, man.
I know in talks to you how passionate you are about this and how much just even the other opportunities like you were just grateful for. So yeah, man. And seeing you do it this quickly, like it's impressive. Shows you obviously have a future in this. And I think your head and heart's in the right place. You want to help the kids and stuff like that too. So
yeah, I appreciate that. And I guess one of the reasons this is so cool for me, and I won't make it like too much about myself because that's kind of weird, but like,
I mean, it kind of is about you.
But like one of the cool things for me is one of these days we can kind of sit down and talk more about, my life story a little bit. But like, this is a cool moment for me of like, I'll tell you guys right now that like, when I became a father at such a young age, I got counted out by a lot of people, and a lot of people that were near and dear to my heart that I'm still kind of resentful towards. And that's something I got to work through. That's not, that's something I got to work on, not even caring about any of that anymore. But that's just, for me, that's just a big thing of like, it's almost like myself of like, I feel like I'm still proving people wrong. And I'm going to continue to do that. I didn't get this far to only get this far. And I'm really excited about the opportunity, and I'm excited to go win a lot of football games, man.
Well, I'm telling you right now, I don't care how far away it is. I used to be a truck driver. I drove 11 hours a day on average. So 4.5 hours or whatever to go see my co-host play a coach's first football game. Unless something comes up, unless something in life decides, no, you're not going to go, I'm going to commit a Friday night to come down and see you coach your first game.
I appreciate that.
You keep me apprised as to when that is and the time and all that fun stuff. They probably played 7:00 most Friday nights down there, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a bit longer of a journey for me, so.
Yeah. Slightly. Couple hours further.
Right.
Yeah,
no biggie.
Just a little further.
But yeah, no, I appreciate that, guys. It really does mean a lot, being able to share this news, and appreciate you guys, let me talk about it, and appreciate the congratulations. It's a big deal for me, and like I've said it 100 times, but it's still feeling very surreal. It still hasn't fully sank in yet. Like I said, I've been dealing with this stuff for a little bit now, and it still hasn't fully sank in yet, man.
Hey, Justin.
Yep.
I'll FaceTime you.
Okay.
You can watch the game with me.
Sounds
How's
good.
that sound?
Sounds good. They're gonna make me buy a ticket. Like, he can't watch this game. But
oh my goodness, you've got some stuff going on too, Justin. I mean, I know you kind of shared some of it the last time we were together on a stream, but what all have you got going?
I appreciate you guys.
You got to go.
You guys
call?
know that? Yeah, I got a phone call.
Get out of here, brother. Love you.
Right.
Later, man.
All right, later.
Yeah, with my stuff, like really just kind of my biggest thing I have coming up is I'm finally turning professional for boxing. So going to be having my first professional fight sometime later this year. We're working on kind of changing up my my
so
fighting.
You're the reason Canelo canceled on Terrence, huh?
Yeah, I'm fighting Jake Paul. No, I'm fighting Jake Paul instead of Canelo. Sorry, I was like, you gotta. They're gonna fight again though. Yeah. So, but yeah. So right now, like before, I switched coaches, so I was more of a kind of a counter puncher, footwork, outside fighter, kind of a boxer puncher. But I was really a big counter puncher before. But my new coach, BJ Flores, was 34-4 as a professional, 119-11 as an amateur. Won a world title in professional, won multiple national titles as an amateur. So really well established coach, got a lot of connections in the industry too. So he's the one that kind of is telling me to pull the trigger to turn pro, and he's just changing up my style completely. So, he has me watching a lot of Canelo because I'm going to be more of a forward walk down power puncher now than a movie guy. He doesn't want me moving. He just wants me like putting pace on guys with cardio and just kind of, wearing them down. And he doesn't want to go in decision. He wants me knocking guys out. So yeah, that's what we're working on now before we set up my fight, just seeing how long it takes for me because changing your fighting style is a bit of a, because when you get back in sparring, it's one of those things you revert back to your old habits. So it's really just install, spar, and keep it going until we get it right to where he, where it gets where he wants it. And so I'm excited about that. Outside of that, just took on, I'm coaching boxing again and doing some personal training online and at this gym that's literally a 10-minute walk from my house. So that was something that helped me a little bit because I think with the content creation, I never felt like I had a complete, a completion of sorts in terms of a day at work or anything like that. And I feel like that was really messing with my head. And then I was in personal training a long time before I had my own gym. I was a fitness director. But when I was a fitness director, that was more sales. And now I wanted to go back into helping people. That's why I left to begin with, is because I didn't want to be a salesman. And so, got back at this gym and now I'm getting back into helping people in their fitness goals. So that's what I've been to school for. I went to school for exercise science and fitness management. So
very cool. And I know we talked a little bit on social media about me being one of your online clients, and I am still interested. So fire off the information whenever you've got something put together, let me know.
Absolutely.
And I will jump in head first. I'm feeling My cardio has actually gotten better this last year. I was surprised because I did not walk a single round of golf in
Yeah.
2024,
Yep.
but it got warm early January. It was like 60 degrees one day. So I
Right.
went out and I walked 9 holes with a buddy of mine, and I didn't get winded until about halfway through the 7th hole because it was like this
Hilly.
way uphill to get to the
Yeah.
green, and it just about took me out. But so
Yeah.
I'm feeling a lot better about that.
Perfect.
So yeah, I'm also starting to do a little bit of lifting and doing some rotation and balance weightlifting specific to
Good.
golf. So
Good.
hopefully we can work together on some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can do sport specific stuff too because
Sweet.
I have multiple certifications and different types of strength and conditioning and stuff like
Sweet.
that too.
Sweet.
And so yeah, I posted earlier too because I'm taking online clients. So I definitely got a spot saved for you because I don't
Cool.
want to take on too many. So that way, because each individual plan is personalized towards your goals, your bodies and balances and stuff like that. So I have like 10. I'm only taking on 10 online clients because I also got to do my in-person clients, stuff like that too. So yeah, we'll definitely get after that.
All right, dude.
Oh,
that sounds great. I just had lunch with my boss out at the country club. So we've been closed since November, late November.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about we're coming back to work and all that good stuff. And he says, well, the dues have gone up for the members. So we're kind of trying to expand the service level that all the guys that work outside like me are going to offer. And he says, we're probably going to open up a spot for one of the outside guys to be a range attendant, go down to where you're not just running back and forth between helping people get on their carts and then going down to the range, make sure they have balls, all that stuff. He says, we want to have somebody down there that's always down there, making sure they've got what they want, make sure if they want a drink or something from the bar and they forgot to get it, you can run up and get it for them or call them to bring it down, blah, blah, blah. He says, and we're looking kind of for a point man that wants to do that. And I said, that sounds really cool. I'd love it. And he goes, well, you're the one I had in mind for it.
Perfect.
So yeah, my hours are going to go up from 3 days a week to possibly up to 5. So that'll be cool. Gets me out of the wife's hair. She'll be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. More time out of the house, right?
More time out of the house. More time. I get to play.
Yourself.
Can't wait to get back out and play.
Yeah, you're out in golf. You're out around golf too. So
around golf. Yep. And so it's a good deal. It's
last thing
so,
too. I got an announcement coming tomorrow for my channel, but I've made the decision to bring on a second person on my channel. I've been on the lookout since I've basically come on the channel for somebody to potentially join me. I've just been extremely picky. So look out for that too. I'll be announcing who people have paid attention to my show. They probably know who it is, but I'll be making an official
somebody that's deep into the recruiting rabbit hole, right?
Yeah. You may have seen him on the channel.
Yep, good dude. They're gonna like it. They're gonna like having him be a part of it. Yeah,
awesome guy.
People are gonna love it.
Yep.
You might, I don't know, he might make a peekaboo appearance here too in the fairly near future. So
absolutely.
Let's see. I think that's really all I've got for tonight, guys. I think that was a good show, man.
Yeah,
this was a lot of fun. It's been too dang long. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two. It's going to seem like a really long off season because we don't have a quote unquote a spring game, but we're going to get a spring showcase. So that should be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, folks, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening and downloading the podcast. I deeply appreciate it. And for Coach BA and for Justin, thanks again for being on, dude. And good luck, BA, if you're still listening out there somewhere later. Good luck. Hope that call went real well. I'm assuming it did. And until next time, we're Generation Red, and we're here to chronicle Nebraska's inevitable return to college football greatness, one podcast at a time, because there's no place like Nebraska.
And Kansas City's worse than Iowa's corn.
They sure as hell were on Sunday. All right, guys. God bless. Good night, and go Big Red.
Go Big Red.